Hello, everyone. Welcome to another episode of Alliterations. Today, I'm taking you into a different world, something that we haven't covered a whole lot. A world of plays. Today, it's going to be a single act play, Color Struck, by Zora Neale Hurston. It was uh, originally published 100 years ago this year, 1925, in the magazine Fire. This was a real interesting play. I enjoyed it. It's very short, uh, available online, free. I'll put a link down in the description to the link I um, used to read it. Uh, Part of the Lehigh University Archives digital library. Uh, yeah, this play was one of the things, I guess, reading up a little bit about it, was one of the things that sparked the Harlem Renaissance in the 19 teens, 20s, and 30s. Uh, the Harlem Renaissance was uh, I guess a lot of people might call it sort of like one of the high points or one of the big artistic or cultural movements, um, the 20th century African American art. Uh, a lot of different individuals came out of it. Zora Neale Hurston, uh, Langston Hughes, sort of got his dabbled in it a little bit. A bunch of jazz musicians and blues musicians, all sorts of people. Um, just a couple of years ago, the drummer of The Roots, uh, Questlove, released a documentary about it, or touching on it a little bit at least. I haven't seen that yet, but I would like to. Anyways, Color Struck. Uh, the whole, the majority of it is set on a train. So you're during Jim Crow South. I think it's set. It's not ever specifically said, but uh, it's always been thought, I guess, to be set in Florida. So you have so it's set in on a train predominantly in the colored car, uh, as it was known in the day. Um, and it's really interesting. I like First off, it's written in the African American vernacular, so it's all um, it's both a challenge to read as someone not super familiar with it. Of course, I am not totally ignorant of it, but it's also very rewarding, and it really does set you into that time period. It sets you into the place, into the setting uh, when they're speaking that way. Uh, there's a lot of different themes that sort of play into it. Um, One of the most prominent, probably the most prominent, is something that is very rarely seen today, I think, uh, from all the literature and media that I've consumed, is the idea of colorism. So it's this intra-racial racism, um, where an African American or black person might be uh, discriminating against or discriminated against based on the shade of skin that they have. If it's a particularly dark person versus a more light-skinned uh, black person, there might be some tensions there. And this play, Color Struck, really does play into that colorism. Um, Main character uh, Emma is on this train uh, with her male companion, and she's very furious at him uh, paying to and probably more attention than he should, but paying attention to a light-skinned dark woman, uh, whereas Emma is a dark-skinned uh, African American woman. And so there's that constant play right there of racial tension even within the same race, uh, which, like I say, is not something you see particularly often nowadays. Uh, there have been a couple of movies that have come out the last couple of years, uh, and I'm sure some books and stuff like that have been quite good too. Uh, and so that's one of the themes about it. The other one is one of the elements that stood out to me in particular was this idea of self uh, degradation or self hatred. It's obvious when as you're reading through it. Of course, you see Emma's anger towards this lighter skinned black woman, but you also see and you see it as you know you see it through a lens of why is her partner paying attention to her. So there's a gender component to it, certainly. But then you also see, as you read through it, that Emma is very dissatisfied with her life. She's very, uh, I don't exactly want to say angry because that's maybe not quite the right word, but she's very uh, disappointed with how her life has turned out. She's very upset that there's this other uh, lighter skinned black woman. Everybody thinks she's so beautiful. Everybody pays attention to her. Um, she, she says to this lighter skinned black woman that everyone thinks everything you do is so pretty, uh, or stuff like that. And you can tell that there's a bitterness. Maybe that's a better way of saying it. Uh, that Emma has to face down, and she's not really eager to do so. And she's taking out her self hatred on this lighter skinned black woman. She's saying, this is not I want, it's kind of like, I want your life, while actually having a fine life at home. She's with this man, she's has children, she has a home, all that sort of stuff. She's traveling, of course, there's more to the story, and it's still Jim Crow South and all that sort of stuff. So that's not to negate that, but it's one of those things where it's uh, there's different layers to it that I think is really interesting to see, and really interesting to see how that plays out. A play from 100 years ago, uh, and like I said, from a super well respected uh, author and anthropologist uh, and thinker of African American background in the 20th century. This was I have read Their Eyes Were Watching God before. That's Zora Neale Hurston is probably her most famous work novel. Uh, it's a 30 step. Something else I want to read but have not yet is her sort of historical and uh, oral history of uh, the last black cargo. Barracoon is the name of the book. It's about the last slave ship that sailed from Africa to the United States. Clotilda, I'm probably not saying that quite right, where she interviewed Good Joe Lewis, who was thought to be not the last, one of the last individuals um, brought from Africa to America as a slave. Uh, and then I also have this other biography that I'm looking forward to reading, Wrapped in Rainbows by Valerie Boyd. Uh, like I said, I'm looking forward to reading that at some point as well. Um, but yeah, Colorstruck was a really interesting read. I wanted to familiarize myself a little bit more with Hurston's work. She's somebody, she just had a book released posthumously last month, I think, or maybe earlier this month, February, of course. Great month to read up on individuals of African American heritage, like every other month. Um, you know, I think this channel, part of it is we're trying to expose ourselves to different pieces of literature that we might not have otherwise um, looked at before. And I'll admit that I'm not 100% sure if it weren't for this channel, if it weren't for seeing that it was 100 years since its publication, I would have read Colorstruck. But I'm grateful that I did. I'm glad that I learned something from reading it. Uh, and I would recommend you read it too. It's maybe 40 pages, 40, 50 pages. It's real short. Once you get into reading the vernacular, it's pretty easy to read as well, which is nice. Uh, so that's this is that's been a good way to get into that different type of literature. I'm looking forward to sharing more, and thank you all for stopping by.